messages coming in the chat from all over the world, from Lekwungen territory, otherwise known as Victoria, Canada, from Mi'kmaq, Nova Scotia, from Basque country, from South Africa, Pennsylvania, the UK, from all over. We could keep it going, but we'll ask you to just go ahead, and if anybody else wants to share where you're coming in from, this is our 6th and final session. Now is the time to do so. So before we begin, please note, as always, that this training session will include interpretation to Arabic, BCMS, English at points, French, German, Hindi, Lithuanian, Portuguese, Russian, Romanian, and Spanish. I say English because we will have one segment of today's session that will take place in Spanish with relay interpretation. So for those of you who 2 weeks ago, our English speakers got to test out your abilities, you'll have another chance today just by going over to the English channel, and anybody can access interpretation from the button at the bottom right of your screen. If you don't have one, you'll need to download a newer version of Zoom or try from a different browser. You can likewise turn on or off closed captioning, as well as the chat feature from the control panel that's also at the bottom of the screen. Finally, before we begin, please note that I will occasionally interrupt our speakers as a disembodied voice to remind them to speak slowly and clearly for our vast international audience and our professional interpreters. On that note, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning to you, wherever you may be in the world. My name is Ethan Earle, and this is Organizing for Power's Core Fundamentals. Buenos dias, bom dia, bonjour, guten tag, labadina, dobrodošli, ozibuna, privyet, namaste, and assalamu alaikum. I'm not sure if it has felt for all of you like this has been a long couple of months, or if it has flown by in record time, but whatever the case, we have now arrived to our 6th and final core fundamental session. I know that for me, it's been a great pleasure to share this space with all of you, to be here over these past 6 weeks, and to be with a group that, between our 2 daily sessions and the many of you participating in big groups using single logins, we can now confidently estimate to be around 4,000 people, 4,000 organizers. So today, I hope all of us are going to finish strong with a strong final session led by our lead trainer, Jane McAlevey, who's going to continue developing our understanding of charting and structure tests. And if that is not enough to get you excited, I can also tell you that we are going to do something that we have never done in O4P's modest history, which is to bring several of our fellow participating groups, your fellow participating groups, on stage to workshop structure tests in front of all of us. Now, we got a huge number of applications, and we spent a long time reading through all of them, and we so appreciate the work that so many of you put into them. And we're only going to be able to bring a very few of you on stage, mostly for time reasons, but also keeping in mind all sorts of diversity, regional, sectoral, everything, as well as the lessons that we want to highlight over the course of these next 2 hours together. So our appreciation goes out to all of you, and especially to those brave souls who will be coming up on stage shortly. And last but not least, before we begin, know that at the end of today's session, we're going to share some important news about future courses, about your graduation certificates, and we also have a nice little surprise that we've got in store for you. So make sure to stick around until the end. We really think that it will be worth your while. So now, having put those little teasers out there, I'm going to go ahead and just quickly get out of the way and hand the virtual mic over to today's trainer, the ineffable, the infectious, the indefatigable Jane McAlevey. Jane, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you, Ethan, for that lovely introduction. For the US folks or Serbians or anyone else in the world paying attention to the basketball finals, the Warriors, the hat I can't take off. We did win again last night. I know there's some Boston Celtics fans in there and probably fans there from other parts of the world. So welcome, everybody. to our final session. I am super excited to be here. And I'm going to start off by running through a handful of slides to address some kind of questions and comments and a little bit of review from last week. And then I'm going to dive right in to beginning to call up the panelists into the fish bowls, which are some of the groups that we selected from the submissions that you made. So I'm going to get started with some slides. Here we go. So this session is called, pulling it all together. And the concept behind pulling it all together is that we've been working as a team, and all of you in teams, on various pieces of what we call the core fundamentals. But they don't operate as separate concepts once you're actually doing the work. They're all integrated together, right? The reason that we focus on leader identification is because it isn't like one day you just think, oh, today's the day that we just do leaders, but we don't do that by having a conversation. You have to have a conversation to figure out how to engage in leader identification among and between each other in the workplace, right? And it's in those conversations that you have to integrate the semantics and think about the words you're using in the conversation, particularly if you're trying to figure out how to move a harder to move worker versus a pro-union activist or a pro-climate change or pro-tenant union or pro-whatever it is you're working on. And in order to know whether or not anything's changing and whether or not your actual base is growing, which gives you more potential power in the power structure analysis of any fight, we have to have a system called charting and structure tests. So it's how we put it all together that actually is what we're going to focus on today. I want to do a teeny bit of review from last week, and this comes from looking at the evaluations and also, again, being mindful of the conversations that go on in the Q&A box, which, again, most of the time I've been doing and having a lot of fun doing. So I just want to go through the sort of 3 steps that came out last week really quickly about how do you actually succeed in a hard conversation. And Andrea and Lilia did a tremendous job with Katie debriefing, showing us that the first thing you do is you acknowledge it, right? If a worker raises an objection when you're having a conversation with them, if a coworker raises an objection with you, then you want to acknowledge it. You want to say it. You don't want to blow past it. You want to if they say I'm pissed off at the union, you want to say, I hear you're pissed off at the union. You actually want to talk about what the issue is. Without legitimizing the excuse. And if they say, I'm pissed off because, we have no control of the scheduling, I'm just making this up, we have no, my schedule's horrible, then the good thing to do is answer that directly and say something like, I bet you are pissed off or frustrated about how scheduling works. And the truth is, it's because in the last contract, there wasn't enough power built here to win the kind of language that you want to win. And then you're going to bring them back, right, to the issue of scheduling. And you want to take them back there. So what do you think it's going to take for you and your coworkers to win self-scheduling or total control of your schedule? And for folks who don't know it, in the real life, I've had the pleasure of winning contracts with workers who actually win full control of their scheduling. No managers involved, right? Just to set the bar a little high. So to move people in a conversation like that, where they're frustrated or angry, Andrea and Lilia showed us the steps for how to, it's still the 6 steps, but they focused in on what it takes to move a really hard to move worker in a conversation like that. Again, worker / coworker. And there were a lot of questions about, was it too personal to frame the question of, would she have enough money to send to her mother? And I just want to answer the question by saying, that it's not too personal. And in my own assessment, in the assessment of the training team, all of us working off the same methods, that is not too personal. And to give you a real life example of the conversation of the leader that I described to you in session 4, Marnay Payne, who was the really hard to move key to unlocking our ability and the Einstein Medical Center fight up against 18 union busters, the final unit, the final big unit of workers who were completely not engaging in that campaign. And so big was the unit, we could not make a 90% credible strike threat unless and until we won them over. In that final conversation with Marne Payne, I understood, as it is in all conversations, that it was going to be a super uncomfortable conversation, both for her and for me. And that is a point that I want to make. The key to hard conversations is that you're both going to be uncomfortable in the conversation, and you should be prepared to accept that, because a hard conversation means that you are asking someone to do something that they're maybe going to say no to, or that they're not prepared to say no to, but you're asking them to do something real and to take risk. And so it's going to be uncomfortable for the person you're talking to, because we're not used to being so direct, and it's going to be uncomfortable for you. In the case of Marne Payne, she had been describing to me this issue of not being able to go out with her boyfriend and have drinks, because the issue for her, if you remember in the hospital, was she was continuously put on call. And so in a very similar way to what Andrea showed you, when I was agitating and trying to call the question on her and she was resisting, I said to her, so what I hear is, you're comfortable, Marne, never getting to have a drink with your boyfriend in a bar in Philadelphia. You're okay if you never get to go out and do that for the rest of your life, because you have a chance to change it now. So that was also me invoking her boyfriend kind of in her personal life, because she had set that up when I was asking her about if she could change one thing, what would it be, right? In step 2 of that conversation. And the issue for her was not letting the hospital continuously mandate her and her coworkers to be in what's called on-call status. Like, you have to make it back to the hospital in 30 minutes. So the key here is be prepared to be uncomfortable. Like, all of us, everyone doing this work, has to get comfortable being uncomfortable in these conversations. A couple of persistent questions that have been lingering in the question box and in some of the evaluation forms that I just want to touch on. Some people have said, well, how does this work in a decentralized workplace? And I'll give you one example, which is a former organizer of mine who was working in a very highly structured environment in the state of Nevada with me years ago in hospitals, then flipped to working on a child care campaign of rural child care workers spread out across big regions. And in this scenario, up to 4 children could be in the home of each of the child care workers, and they were subsidized by the state. And so the question was how to do leader identification when no worker was in the same room together. And the answer to that was for us to brainstorm in a frustrating conversation with her initially, what would the questions be for us to figure out leadership identification in a decentralized, rurally based system? And the answer was asking the worker, if the 4 slots for children in your house were taken, who's the child care provider that you're going to recommend they go to? Very simple. Or if you yourself had to put your child somewhere and it couldn't be your house, in whose house would you put it? So there are, in fact, networks among these workers. We don't see them. The workers actually have them. And the challenge to you is to think about, how do you adjust the concepts we're laying out and make them as structure-based as you can? And to that point, another question is, what if our group is not structure-based? My answer to that for my entire adult life has been, your task, again, is to take the methods here, which work easier in some settings and are a little bit more challenging in others, but to take the concepts, the methods. It's actually why we don't call it models. It's to take the methods and work as teams, which is why we ask you to come as teams, right? Organizing is not a solo sport. It's a team sport. So it's to work together in your teams to think about, how can you apply this, right, in your setting. So I'll give an example of this with climate justice groups. I was doing some work with Fridays for the Future in Germany right before the pandemic. And the Fridays for the Future folks had just done like a 10,000 person youth rally in one of the strikes called On a Friday. But they were frustrated because their numbers weren't growing and they weren't actually moving much power. They were just doing fun, good mobilizations that would get some press coverage, but nothing was actually changing. And I said to them, what about taking a different approach, which is instead of that you call for high school and middle school students to walk out of their high schools on Fridays and show up in the center of Berlin or whatever the town is, why don't you start to go high school by high school and actually build a high school by high school structure? So it's not 10 students walking out of, I'm making this up, 100 high schools. It's a majority of students walking out of a majority of the schools. And if you start to track that and you start to figure out who are the organic leaders in the sort of high school, then you're going to have way more people at your next action. So that's an example. And the point of coming up with measurable systems, by the way, these are all about measurable, credible systems to grow your base, is to answer the question, is actually anything changing because of the work you're doing? And how do you know? And is it big enough to meet today's challenges? Because they're pretty serious. So that's what we're trying to get at with the methods, and why we're going to focus on bringing it all together today with the focus around structure tests is because structure tests allow us to figure out, are we putting semantics, leader identification, and a structured organizing conversation together in a way that's enabling people to know whether or not we're ready to win, to know whether or not the actions we're taking every day are actually meaningfully adding up to the power we're going to need to win that which we want to win. So structure tests, again, they systematize that we reach out to all people in our base, because we're not starting with who already likes us and talks to us. We're starting every structure test with every single potential worker or every single potential high school person in a city if you're doing Fridays for the Future climate justice work, et cetera. It helps us assess the effectiveness of organic leaders, right? If we're trying to both figure out who they are and if you're trying to figure out who they are, and also how effective are they, which if you remember from session 4 means, are they actually the organic leader is one question. The second one is, are they really bought into the campaign, right? Which is two different issues. Are they doing the work? Because they're natural organizers. Are they doing the work in their units to build the union strong? Structure tests systematize high participation, because again, the goal is we're trying to talk to every single person, and it's going to take a huge bunch of workers in any workplace to try to talk to all the workers, right? So it's going to force you to build bigger and bigger committees of workplace organizers to get that kind of work done. And it's also going to build a more democratic organization, because you're actually trying to talk to all the workers, not a sort of vanguard small committee of them. And fundamentally, it's about knowing whether or not you're ready to win. That's what the point is of all this work. Are you ready to win? Do you have enough power built in relationship to the demands that you've set? If you're going in for a 10-cent raise, well, or something small, because 10 cents might be big somewhere, so I don't want to use the exact math, but if you're going in for a relatively small victory, you may not have to do all this work. If you're trying to save your pension system, if you're trying to win worker control of schedules, if you're trying to force an employer, if they sell a factory, that every single worker working in the factory has to be hired by the next company, that's called successor language, some version of that in each country, meaning a successor employer has to keep every single worker in their current status with their pay and their union. These are much harder tests. So are you trying to stop the privatization of entire systems, right? We've been privatizing almost everything for about 35, 40 years. And we know it's not good. We frankly know it's not good. So if you are trying to make public again what's been a privatized system, have you built the power required to win? It's a fundamental question. How much power do you need? How much power is required? How much power are you going to build? And how do you know you built it? That's kind of the whole point here. So they're constant. And again, just to show a picture, some of the submissions we got were for visibility structure tests. I just want to raise that caution again, that unless and until you have been able to do a number of majority structure tests where the boss does not know if you fail, which is why I was trained and teach doing a lot of hand sign petitions first. It's because no one knows that you're not doing so well on your structure tests, except for all of you on the organizing committee, right? Rather than announcing a t-shirt day without understanding whether or not you're going to freak out your employer because everyone walks in the t-shirt or the button or the lanyard or the pin or whatever it is, or the hat, or whatever it is. You want to shock the employer when you do a visibility action, right? You want to telegraph, we are in control of this workplace. So we had 38 structure test submissions, and that was very exciting. And I'm just going to leave that slide there. We'll put it up again later. And of the 38 submissions that we got, we selected 6, 3 for this session and 3 for the B session, which for many of you, you'll be sleeping in. And for many people who are going to be in that session, they're currently sleeping because they're in a different part of the world. So we're going to take roughly 30 minutes, with each one of them in the fishbowl. But I want to congratulate every single team that submitted a proposal, because it means that people are actually trying to figure out, how do you take what we're teaching and put it into action? So what you're going to be watching for, right? So everyone's going to be active participants here. And what you're watching for, while we hear great groups coming up to just give it a whirl, give it a try, on stage with all of us and like workshop it, what you're watching for is there some kind of leader identification built into the structure test? Are they trying to get more of them? Are they trying to find their first ones? Are they trying to assess whether or not they're with the program, right? There's all these different things that we could be doing with organic leaders to know whether or not, or how they integrate into the structure test. So is there a component of leader identification in the structure test? Is it explicit? Again, we don't have secrets the way we do this work. We're not a secret vanguard. Our job is to teach every worker how to do this. That's actually what we do. We are teaching people. There are no secrets. So are we being explicit that the reason that you're trying to figure out who are the natural leaders among your peers is because you want to win, and you want to win something big. And in order to do that, you got to figure out who are those workers. They're going to unify most of your coworkers. Semantics. Remember it, look for it, listen for it throughout the steps. In some cases, we're going to ask people, we're going to have time. I'm going to start off. I'm asking a group to go through their 6-step conversation in the fishbowl with you. So just listen for it. No one's grading anyone here, right? This is a tremendous exercise we're doing together. But is there a healthy balance of you and we? Again, to the point, it is not that you don't ever say we. It is not that we don't ever say us. It's that we're trying to minimize, and we're trying to be clear about when we say you, to actually put some ownership and agency on the person we're engaging, like it's not going to happen without you, right? Versus the we. Of course, we use we and us sometimes. Again, the point of the semantics exercise is to get a healthy balance of them and understand why you're using which word when you're using it. And then are all 6 steps covered. And lastly, will the workers themselves learn to build their own power from the structure test that we're looking at? Meaning the transparency of it. Are we teaching workers to build their own power? That's actually the point of organizing for power. So I'm going to stop my slides there. And I'm going to tell you the 3 groups quickly, and then I'm going to ask Ethan to get the first group ready. We're going to start out with the Amalgamated Transit Workers Union from Oakland, California. And then we're going to move to Comité, which is a Mexican organization on the US-Mexico border. That's the one as Ethan projected to you. They will do their conversation with us in Spanish. And then we're going to move to Canada, Western Canada, and we're going to look at some public sector workers dealing with the privatization crisis to the point of privatization. So the one thing I want to say as we're transitioning into this is when we asked for the submissions out of all of them, just want to make this as a universal lesson. None of them actually came with the total number of the workers that were potentially to be engaged, what the number was that people had to hit some definition of their majority, if it's a majority. And that's a crucial question. So if you're planning a structure test, you have to start with the total number, right? That's what makes it democratic, bottom up, and organizing versus mobilizing. So we actually had to go back and ask all the groups to submit those numbers. So that's just a sort of, again, a clue. If you're sitting down as a team, you got to start with a flip chart or something that says, okay, there's this many workers here. What's the goal we have? And then how are we going to get there? So that's my introduction to it. And now I would love to call our two fishbowl participants from the Amalgamated Transit Workers Union. There we go. Sultana and Brandy, welcome. So good to see you. I think that you should feel free to take your, there we go, to just keep yourselves unmuted because we're going to have a conversation, except for occasionally when we're interrupted by Ethan trying to slow us down or something, because I suspect we can all get going really fast.
Remember to go slowly.
I suspect that we could all get going really pretty quickly. And that is a problem I have all the time whenever we're doing this. So I am super excited. What I want to do first is just ask Sultana, who people may remember from the opening fishbowl. So it's interesting to have Sultana back. She was sort of randomly selected in the leader ID exercise. So Sultana, introduce us again. Brandy, please introduce us. And Sultana, when you do, just remind us of the local and where you are physically and who the workers are.
Okay, fantastic. Sultana Adams, representing Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 192. We do work for AC Transit, which is a public transit agency. I am a bus operator, and we represent about 1,731 workers.
1,731. Everyone writing that down? 1,731. Excellent. Okay, and you're a bus operator, which means that's the word for bus driver, bus operator?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, Brandy, introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brandy Donaldson. I am a bus operator at AC Transit as well, and part of the Amalgamated Transit Union with Sultana. And that is what I do.
Fantastic. Okay, so we heard the total number of workers that you have. I would like for one of you to just briefly tell us what is the structure test?
I'll go ahead and do that. So our structure test is actually to survey our membership to identify the top 3 issues that everyone has with the workplace, because we're in a position where we were just able to win hazard pay, and we just got a rollover contract with raises, and people think, oh, well, we don't have anything to do. There's a lot of complacency right now, where we feel that right now is the perfect time for us to do the work, organize, so that in 3 years, when we have to have another contract fight, we're actually ready to stand strong against management. So we're going to not only identify what the top work issues are for everyone, this is also going to allow us to do some mapping of our workplace. So we'll be getting names, what they're, where they work, what job they do, and also asking them who their most trusted coworkers are, so that we can do some leader identification, because we are a big group. So we need those leaders to help us hit these numbers, hit the numbers. And we are trying to hit approximately 900 of our coworkers, which would give us the majority of our group.
Perfect. So you are going to try and hit 900. So this is a sort of a simple majority. And would you say, again, I'm looking off of your submission. So for the rest of the people who are listening, I've got several pages of notes that they submitted to us, right? This is what groups did. They filled in a form and it was really great to work through. So just a couple clarifying questions. So that was great opening. You're going for essentially a simple majority. And have you done a structure test this methodical ever before? Have you tried to do this before?
We had definitely not done one this detailed. We've had a few tries with surveys. We've done petitions, and we've gotten several hundred at the most. So this is definitely not only the most detailed and structured; it's the most ambitious.
Fantastic. And why does that matter to you right now? Like, why are you going to actually try? There's some things that you talk about in here in terms of the divisions and where you think you have organic leaders. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit. Like, why does it matter for you to try and get more systematic right now?
It's really important for us to do this right now because one of the things that we have in our favor is that our passengers or our riders, they experience a lot of problems with our public transit system, whether it's late buses, not enough buses, maybe buses aren't clean. And what we found while working with our riders to fight for hazard pay is that most of the issues that they experience are directly related to problems that we have in the workplace that management ignores. And if they would address our issues, our dignity issues, our compensation issues, all the morale issues, then our passengers actually wouldn't experience the issues that they experience because they're directly related to it.
That's right. And so one thing that was one of the first questions I had when you initially sent it in, and then it was clarified when we asked you a couple of questions, but I just want to do that as a teachable kind of moment for folks. When you first sent in the submission, all really good, all the submissions were good and great to read. You said that you were interested in launching a survey with the riders as well as the workers and the riders. And early on, one of my questions was, I hope they're not going to try and launch the same survey at the same time. And in fact, now we know that you're not, right? Because that wouldn't work. So just as a teachable moment. So you're going to start by building your own organization strong. That's why you're trying to see, can you actually reach a majority systematically, which you haven't done yet. And then once you have a stronger structure, and what I read in here was that you're actually trying to get more organic leaders, that you're weaker in some divisions and stronger in some divisions. And Brandy, I see a lot of Brandy nodding her head too, so don't be shy. I hear that you're weak in some divisions and strong in some divisions. So that's a part of the objective here. Is that right?
Yes, it's the demographics for sure. And me and Sultana are both from the same division. So where we're both working on the same division, we have another division that's kind of just left out. And no matter how hard we were trying to communicate before hazard pay, it just wasn't working. And now taking this course, we see the full picture. And now it's like, wow, I know exactly what we need to do now and what we weren't doing. So it's been great.
Yes.
That's great. And so what's an example? Like, you're both bus operators. So obviously you've got power, you got some organization going among the bus operators. Can you name the example of a division that's weak that you're now going to go into with this structure test and try and really identify some organic leaders?
Division 4. We work out of Division 3 in Richmond, California, and our toughest division is Division 4. And Brandy is absolutely correct.
Sorry, tell people what that is. What is Division 4?
So Division 4 is in East Oakland, and most of our divisions are made up mostly of bus drivers, right? There's hundreds of bus drivers, and then we also have mechanics. We have service people that clean the buses and put all the fuels in. We have dispatchers, clerks, timekeepers, and then of course we have the management structure within all of those at a huge division. And what we found through taking this course, we realized that there was someone at that division that is very trusted who was literally talking against us. Every time one of our people there talked someone into attending our rally, she would target them to talk them out of it. So literally what you guys taught happened to us. And we understand that we need to get those people that are against us on our side. We need to figure it out.
All right. That's pretty exciting. So so it's actually really exciting. So I can't wait to get back out to celebrate the Oakland, Bay Area Warriors.
We're Warriors fans ourselves.
Of course, and see how much stronger you are a year from now. It's going to be really exciting to see. So just so that the participants know, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to ask Sultana and Brandy to run the rap that they wrote, to sort of practice their own 6-step conversation. You'll tell us who's playing the worker organizer and who's playing the worker that you're trying to recruit. We've invited them, as we will with everyone, to decide how hard it's going to be to move the person that you're trying to move. I'm going to be mindful of the time, and just either way, I'm going to be cutting you at the most at 15 minutes. And then we're going to put chat on and invite people to ask themselves sort of questions in the chat about the structure test, and or raise questions about the structured organizing conversation that you're going to road test. And boy, do I appreciate that, because this, what you're doing is so great, Brandy and Sultana, what you were just saying, like you realize, oh, you got to go figure out how to move that person who everyone's listening to, but you haven't tried to really actually move before. She's your Marnay, right, in my life. Or I could name probably 500 worker leaders who are Marnay Payne in my life, in any campaign. Not just campaign, in the ongoing life of the organization, right? It's that our chance to grow more organic leaders and to grow our base strong comes through campaigns. That's why Jolene Levitt articulated in the opening session so well that each structure test is a mini campaign, and it gives us the opportunity to reach out and find more organic leaders and target them, right, and bring them along. So each structure test is a mini campaign. And in this one, you're going to try and get more people talk to more people systematically than you ever have. So are you ready to run the conversation with us?
Jane, I do need to make 2 quick comments before we do that. The first thing is just to mention, I feel I need to mention that one of the things that makes charting difficult in our workplace is that we don't have people with bus drivers. We don't fit into neat little morning swing and overnight shift categories. There are people who have shifts that cover multiple categories, as well as people whose shift can change on a daily basis. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I feel that Brandy and I both would be remiss if we didn't mention that the gains that we've been able to get so far, and even in bringing us to this training, as well as winning hazard pay, has been made possible by our partnership with the East Bay Democratic Socialists of America. Not only have they helped us connect with our community, they've given us, invaluable training on things like, I didn't know how to conduct and train people how to phone bank members before we connected with them. And, I encourage any organization, particularly transit organizations, if you have a chapter of the Democratic Socialists in your area, I highly recommend that you connect with them, because they are, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be where we are without that connection.
That is fantastic. And I will say, great endorsement of going to find, no, but really going to, but in fact, I have a real comment about it too. I mean, just like union locals are very uneven, as we might know, right? There are some out there that probably the three of us, if we were members of, would be trying to change it right straight away, right? What I can tell you about the East Bay DSA is that we know it's a strong chapter of DSA. So I'm just going to say that too. So the ones that you have in your area are actually folks who I have also been in trainings with and who are really terrific. So so it isn't just look for, you might find I'm just being honest, as we always are. You might find a union local that is not one that you would be feeling great about. Not every DSA chapter is going to be able to help you in the way that the East Bay DSA chapter helped you, but hopefully DSA is working on getting all their people as good as they can be too, right? So when you're choosing an organization to work with in whatever country you're in, because there certainly are not DSA chapters all over the world, there may be something like it, right? There are community-based organizations that exist, and it's crucial, especially for rank and file organizations and or those of us with less resources, to actually figure out who is it in our region who can help us get better at what we do. Like, part of what I love about your submission and the work you're doing, and that I appreciate about it, is you are looking everywhere you can to get better at the work, which means you're trying to address the very first core question I asked, which was, is anything changing because of the work we're doing? Because frankly, just to keep doing this work and not see much change,
right?
There's too much at stake right now for that to happen, right? People being shot, yachts being built, and our people getting screwed. So that's great. So I say let's dive into it. Let's see you work on this structure organizing conversation. And I'm going to give you, I might even give you about 12 minutes at this point. And that's fine. However far you get in the 12 minutes, you're going to get. But we're going to have you walk through, and this was sent to us in writing, just so folks know. And I want to encourage folks that there's a reason why we write these, because when we write them, it helps clarify what we're actually going to try and say and the questions we're going to ask and how we're going to think about inoculation. And I think that these folks did I think Sultana and Brandy and the team that did this did a terrific job writing up and thinking through the 6 steps. So are you ready? Tell us who's playing organizer and who's playing to be recruited.
I'm the recruit. Sultana's the organizer.
Okay. All right,
go.
Everyone ready to go?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, my name is Sultana Adams, and I'm a bus operator and a member of ATU 192's Hazard Pay Coalition. We're actually surveying our members to see what work problems they feel most strongly about. What's your name?
Oh, hi. I'm Brandy. I work at D3. I'm a bus operator as well.
Okay, you're a bus operator like me. All right. So we've been out here the whole pandemic, keeping our cities moving, right?
That's for sure.
Well, as you know, we fought for hazard pay and won because we felt so disrespected by management. They basically just paid us lip service in return for all of our sacrifices. But a few $1,000s still doesn't give us the respect and the dignity we deserve day to day on the job, does it?
Oh, no. It's nice to get some money, but it definitely did not equate out to what we dealt with for the last 2.5 years. That's for sure.
Couldn't agree more. Brandy, if you got to decide how AC Transit was run, what are the first 3 things you would change?
Wow. 3 things. Well, definitely the run times. They have our run times very misconstrued for the reality of the world. But also definitely the bathroom issues. I know they put porta potties up, but yeah, I need a clean working restroom with some hot water to wash my hands.
Understood.
But number 3, definitely would have to be the massive disconnect between management and the workers. You know, they're also working from home while we're out here dealing with the issues every day So they really need a reality check.
I couldn't agree more, Brandy. And you actually brought up three amazing issues. And it's interesting that you mentioned the disconnect between workers and management, because that in itself is the reason why we don't have safe and secure locations to use the bathroom, and why our work schedules, the time that they actually put on our bus routes, is absolutely ridiculous. And when you're out there and you can't find a bathroom, how does that make you feel?
Well, first of all, when I'm showing up to the line 25 minutes late and supposed to have already left, but I'm running around a couple blocks trying to find a clean restroom to use because I won't be using the porta potty, it becomes very frustrating. Yeah, it just becomes, it's one of my nightmares.
It's one of all of our nightmares out there, especially when you can't find a bathroom. And as you know, as a result of dealing with with the issues you mentioned during the pandemic, we've actually had a lot of our coworkers that have resigned or retired early. And we actually only have a trickle of new hires coming in. So of course, we're still stretched thin. And that's why there aren't enough of us to actually run enough buses, and why we're running late. And of course, as a result of all that, our riders are still suffering from reduced service levels. Our company, AC Transit, has over $100 million in rescue funding in the bank, but they're using the lack of workers as an excuse to save that for a rainy day. Do you think if we actually were able to hire, do you think we'd be able to hire and retain the workers that we need if we were able to change those three things that you mentioned, Brandy?
Yeah, definitely retain them. You know, the hiring is, they're giving the incentive for hiring bonuses and stuff. So getting them in the door doesn't necessarily seem to be the problem, but we're not even keeping ourselves at the moment because of these conditions. So how would we expect anybody to walk in the door and want to stay? We're driving for over 3 hours at a time without a restroom break even. They really need to change what's going on here.
Understood. I couldn't agree more. But given that we've been experiencing these problems for so long, because I've spoken to a lot of our coworkers, and the bathrooms especially that's one of the things they talk about all the time. Do you think management is really, really invested in making these things change, given that they've been going on for so long?
Oh, they put porta potties up with the padlock on. That's their answer.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, they first of all, they need to come out of their house and see the traffic on the road. That would definitely help because, I feel like they're going off of numbers, and the numbers don't equate to what we actually deal with on a daily basis.
Well, Brandy, that actually goes back to the other issue that you mentioned, the disconnect between management and the workers, because they've been working from the safety of home throughout the whole pandemic. And even before the pandemic, they had no idea what our jobs entail. And they basically make these decisions with no knowledge of what we do. And that's exactly why we're out here surveying all of our coworkers, so that we can not only identify the issues, the top issues that we can actually unify behind and go to management as a solid unit. We can actually we can then use that to go to our riders. And if you remember, our riders stood with us and stood up for us when we fought for hazard pay. And if we're able to join together eventually with our riders, we could definitely present a stronger front and have a really great shot of getting these issues addressed. So we're launching.
Well, definitely.
Go ahead.
Definitely, our writers, they definitely get what they want, So if we could just hand them a list, it's almost like have them call in and make the complaints for us. It may make some change because we're definitely not listened to.
I completely agree to you. I completely agree with you, because when we complain to management, they ignore us. But when passengers call in and send emails, they are more actually quick to address the issues. And
That's for sure.
and along that line, since this survey is just the first step, so that we can identify our issues and then connect with our community. Are you willing to complete the survey by next Monday?
Well, who exactly would see the survey?
Well, the great thing about this is that since it's a survey and not a petition, and we're just looking to identify the top work issues, we're actually not going to at any point reveal identifying any names. So the information that may be released is what are the top 3 problems and how many people that we actually reached in this survey. And our goal is actually to get 900 of our members to fill out this survey, so that we'll be representing more than a majority of our membership. And as you know, there's strength in numbers. So since your name won't be revealed and you have nothing, you have everything to gain and nothing to lose by doing this, did you want to go ahead and fill out the survey?
Yeah, I can fill out the survey.
Okay. And fantastic, Brandy. Now, how do you think management will actually react when they see us asking for more control of our workplace?
No, they won't be happy, but well, currently they're all at home, so what are they really seeing? But we can, but what are they really going to be able to do when we're just asking for what's right?
That's true. We are just asking for what's right. And in this situation, since we are only revealing what the issues are and no names will be released, we don't really have to worry about retaliation at this point. And if we continue to let their total control go unchallenged, do you think we'll ever be able to change the 3 things you mentioned?
Oh no, I think we'll all be looking for new jobs, because I don't know how much longer I could do this.
I couldn't agree more. And as I mentioned earlier, since we are trying to reach 900 of our members, it would be great if you could identify people on your shift and take the survey and share it with them. What shift do you work, Brandy?
I work the mid swing, 3 p.m. to midnight.
Okay. And on that shift, who's the worker that you respect the most?
I'd have to say it's probably our dispatch, Miss Williams.
Oh yeah, I know Miss Williams. Yeah, she's been with us a while.
Yeah, I see her the most.
Okay, fantastic. And would you be willing to share the survey with her?
Yeah, I can talk to her about it. Definitely, probably once any management in the office has gone home for the day.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's an advantage of working your shift. They are gone for the day. And and are there 2 other workers on your shift that you'd be willing to share the survey with, Brandy?
Well, the driver I relieved, she actually spoke at the Hazard Pay rally. I do talk to her frequently, so I could definitely talk to her about it. And one of my other good friends, he drives late nights with me, Jesse, so I could definitely reach out to him.
Okay, fantastic. So that's Sabril, Jesse, and what was the name of the lady? That's which of our rally speakers were you referring to?
I think her name's Latuana. No, not Latuana. Tawana.
Okay. Okay. So if you can reach out to Latonya, Sabril, and then Jesse, and share the survey with them, that'll be great. Can I follow up with you next Monday and give you a call?
Yeah, that works. It's my day off.
Okay, fantastic. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
I'm going to scream in my house. Feel free to put that chat on. Holy smokes. I think we've got a couple new trainers. That was fantastic. That was just fantastic in almost unimaginably great ways, really. I just want to start by saying, look at that love you got going on there. The fact that you just stood up here and were willing to do that. And I want people in the participants to know, we didn't give any feedback on that rap, not one piece of feedback. Part of why we asked them to share it is because it came in so dang good. Like it came in like that. And we were like, these two women need to get on stage and show what they just put together from being in this course. And the fact that you just shined the entire way through it and did not miss a step in a 6-step conversation is totally terrific. Right before I give a couple of comments to you, and then we're going to get ready to bring up another group in a minute, see if there's any. I'm going to count on Ethan and Sarah and Clemence to tell us if there's any like key question that needs to be asked, and just tell us what it is. But I just want to ask, Sultana, how did you feel doing it? Anything you would do differently than you just did?
I tell you what I would do. I would practice it a million times in the mirror, because there was a point where I kind of started to get a little nervous. But I need to say it over and over and over again, so that it just flows, and I don't have to think. I don't have to, worry about what the next step is. It'll just come out.
Okay. It came out pretty well, I'll tell you that, just for starters, but I love hearing you say you're going to practice it over and over and over. I want to know from Brandy's perspective, is there anything that you think that Sultana could have said differently, or you wish she had asked you differently in the conversation, just for group learning?
So this is actually our third time doing
Practicing?
this together. Yeah. And each time has been completely different.
Oh my God, we have to practice. Of course we practice. But it is different every time.
Different every time.
Brandy does not make it easy on me.
That's fantastic. Oh my God. Yeah, go ahead. Tell us, Brandy.
I'm just giving real answers that, like, if she was really asking me, I would give, because this is what we're really going to be receiving, so I just tried to keep it true to my life. And so it just, no, I think she did a really good job. And I feel bad because we practiced it last night and I completely changed it from last night. So I feel bad. So
that's the world.
Yes,
that's
what we need to do.
So
people are going to be brutal.
Yeah. They're going to be more brutal.
I try not to be brutal. Yeah.
They're going to be more brutal than Brandy.
Yes.
But so there were so many good things to do. I just want to say a few of the things that I observed, just a few, because otherwise we won't have time for anyone else. And Comité is going to be super great too, to listen to, I'm sure. So I don't know if the audience saw it, and I can't look at all that chat, but I'm just going to hope it's in there. I'll look at the chat later. There was a beautiful balance of you and us. Like, you actually used the word you several times throughout it. And also, like, what do we need and what then us? So just on the question of balancing you and us, as two coworkers, two bus operators talking to each other, really well done. I would say, just because I have to look for something to say, because it's hard to find things that I would say to improve. In your very opening, Sultana, when you talked about the survey, you said that you're trying to talk to all the workers to hear what they say. And that's where you could have said you for the first time, right? To hear what people like you, Brianna, have to say, instead of the generic they. But I'm stretching here to find some things, okay? So what was amazing was the interactions that you had. You are so ready to do this. You do not need to keep practicing. Just go and start. I'm just saying that. When you had like great humor in it too. You were so attentive to everything that Brandy said. So when she said, what are the problems, et cetera. And she said, sort of overtime, the hours that you're so many hours that you're working, the clean restrooms, the disconnect between the boss at home. You came right back to it. Like, you're like, oh, well, you brought up 3 important issues. And at the foundation of that, you're right. The issue is the disconnect between the boss and the workers. And then you literally went through every one of her issues with her. It was like super systematic. You said you mentioned too much staff. You asked her a question to make her explain to you, to like get into her anger, like, how does it make you feel? You literally asked her, how does it make you feel when you can't find a bathroom? And then she gave you an answer and you said, that's right. That's how we all feel. That's the you and that's the we in that conversation. And it was personal and fantastic. And then later on when Brandy said, yeah, their solution was putting up porta potties with locks on them, right? I mean, obviously that's a preposterous solution to the problem. So again, I'm not going to go through all of it, but by about 8 minutes in is when you got to doing the good education. You're about to call the question on the survey. You did actually explain to her that the goal was 900. So you said it, like, we're actually trying to get to 900. And then the only thing I would say about this, but it's really realistic as your first structure test, right? A lot of times if people were watching the Einstein charts that we did, I explained that our very first serious structure test was not a public one. Our first structure test was getting people to sign the union authorization cards. Once we hit a majority on that, then we moved to a public structure test to see could that number hold. So the only thing I might say is it's good to not you were like de-emphasizing that she should be fearful. You know what I mean? You were really protecting her, like, because no one's going to see it. And I bet you could have moved her without saying that. That's my guess. That's my guess. Like,
I think
bit
so too. I
right?
think so too. I agree with you. I totally agree.
So I wouldn't even lead with it. I would go right into the inoculation after she agrees to fill in the survey without a big explanation that no one's going to see it. Now, she asked you who was going to see it. So you had to answer, but you could have just said, at that point, you could have taken like a minute to explain what a structure test is to her. And you could have said to her, this is the way that you are going to be able to resolve the questions of scheduling, the questions of bathrooms, and that huge disconnect between the employer. This is step 1 in a series of campaigns that we're going to have to launch to build the organization strong enough. This first one is, and just lay it out to her, right? This first one is a survey and folks won't see it, but you don't have to downgrade it so much, right? And then you went right into the inoculation. You told her you wanted to reach 900. That was totally fantastic. I loved how clear you were on next steps. You asked her for the names, and then you asked her to repeat them, and then you actually repeated them, and you made a plan to follow up with her on a Monday, and you said, Latwana, Jesse, and Sabril. You helped her remember the name of the person who was a speaker at the rally. I think you are more than ready for your structure test. That is my answer to the question. Is there anything from team operations that we need to ask of these folks besides giving them a gigantic round of applause? I am thrilled by what you're about to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Don't say thank you though. Because if you win more buses,
that's right.
I'll be able to get around Oakland a little bit better. You know what I mean? And
right.
I got a little self-interest in the bus riders, even though I'm sitting in New York City right now. I got an interest in the bus drivers and the subways here too. So that's it. That was fantastic. That was totally fantastic. It was amazing.
I'm so thankful even for the opportunity to get to do it and just be workshopped. I really appreciate it.
It's so great hearing that you practiced 3 times and that it was different all 3 times. That's real. One conversation is going to be the same. It's that the more you ingrain the 6 steps, the better it's going to be. And you obviously, from doing it 3 times, just nailed it. So 3 extraordinary role play wrap. Great job. Look forward to seeing you sometime really soon. Great job.
I hope so.
Job, Sultana. Can't wait to see what happens in the next contract and how the riders get involved.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Round of hearts. You already got a ton of hearts. And let's get Omite up here. That was great. All right. Now let's get Comité up here on stage. Look at that nice picture. As we are moving to it, the thing I want to point out to participants is, I mean, we had no, like literally no feedback on their rep at all. The only thing we asked them was to tell us why it was a structure test. And again, we had to ask how many workers were in the unit, how many they were going for, how many workers were in the unit. But when they sent in their written rep, which is also true of Comité, our next team up, it was in good shape, which means that they were, you know, seriously engaging in the course. So let's see who we have here. We're going to have, so Comité, I think I'm just going to ask Annabelle to do the introduction for us, or you tell me if one of you is ready to. Whoever speaks first, just tell us a little bit about Comité for a minute or two at most, and then introduce yourselves. And then we're going to get right into the same kind of questions and same discussion.
Y antes de comenzar, un momento, just to say in English, for our English language audience, you will need to be in the English channel. We will have translation from Spanish to English, de español en inglés para este segmento. Ok, adelante.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Bueno, nosotros formamos parte del Comité Fronterizo de Obreros. Es una organización que se encuentra en Piedras Negras, pero estamos en distintos lugares. Tenemos presencia en Reynosa, Tamaulipas, Ciudad de Acuña, Torreón. Y bueno, nos dedicamos a defender derechos laborales de trabajadores de maquiladoras, y en estos momentos tenemos un proyecto de una campaña sindical en la que lo que es en Torreón, Acuña y Piedras Negras tenemos pues varios blancos ubicados, y en el proyecto que enviamos, ¿no? Hablamos un poco pues acerca de uno de estos proyectos que estamos desarrollando. Están con nosotros Arturo, que es el encargado de reformas laborales, está Belia, que es de monitoreo, y está Juan Carlos Palomino, que es un organizador de Ciudad de Acuña, y una servidora, que soy Anabel, que soy líder de campaña sindical en Piedras Negras.
Fantastic. It is so great to have all of you here. So tell us a little bit more about the specific structure test. Tell us what you sent in. You gave us some numbers, and tell us what it is you're trying to achieve in the structure test.
Ok, me gustaría como les digo, tenemos varios blancos, pero me gustaría enfocarnos a lo mejor en el que es como más cercano, que es el de Piedras Negras. Tenemos una maquiladora que tiene alrededor de 330 trabajadores. En un inicio, cuando iniciamos el proyecto, eran 500, pero como es una empresa con muchas deficiencias, que tiene muy mal trato al trabajador, no cuentan con un sindicato, hay mucha rotación y muchos despidos, los forzan a firmar sus renuncias y este tipo de situaciones, ¿no? Entonces, actualmente tenemos 330 trabajadores, y nuestra estructura más cercana, que aquí los llamamos delegados especiales, actualmente se conforma por 15 personas, pero queremos llegar a que sean 30. Este blanco son alrededor de 25 líneas. ¿Qué son las líneas? Son como las bandas de producción que hacen distintas cosas cada una. Y cada línea tiene alrededor, las más pequeñas, de 6 trabajadores. Entonces, por decir, en esta línea que hay 6 trabajadores, nos interesa tener un delegado o una persona que forme nuestra estructura, para que esa persona sea quien maneje, vaya, nos ayude como con sus demás compañeros, ¿no? Pero hay líneas que tienen más de 15 o 20 trabajadores y en estas líneas nos interesa tener alrededor de 2 personas que se acerquen a nuestra estructura. Entonces, para llegar al grado de tener un 10% de los trabajadores cercanos a nosotros para que ellos puedan ayudarnos a llegar a sus demás compañeros trabajadores.
So this is one of the questions before we get to the conversation. One question about this is, so what you just articulated and what we read makes a lot of sense, really good. For the smaller lines, you want a 1 to 10-ish ratio. For your bigger lines, you essentially need to have 2 people working in each of those lines. So in the structure test itself, before we get to you practicing the rap or the conversation, in it later, I'll just fast forward a little bit, but you're asking somebody to take the photo, have a photo done of themselves, and to do the affiliation. So you haven't mentioned that though in the opening of it. So one question from your proposal for your plan of action, for your structure test plan, for your work plan is, for me, it was hard to tell if you were committee building, which is a foundational principle, right? How do you find the people who are going to help you? Like you just said, you have 15, you need 15 more so that you have key folks in each place. But are you asking the 15 to sign the affiliation and to take their picture? Or is that what you're doing once you recruit the 15 more? And then you're going to be asking the 30 of you to go get a majority photo petition. And if it wasn't clear yet, and to get to affiliate, to form an independent union. For folks who don't know about Mexico, I'll just say it briefly, right? There's a lot of state-run unions that are not, we don't really think of them as unions, they're not independent. This is an attempt to form an independent workers union. There's been some big successes recently in Mexico, so it's very exciting. So tell us that. Who are you at, well, before you practice it, who are you asking to take the photo and to sign the affiliation petition?
Nosotros lo que ocupamos, vaya, la estrategia que estamos haciendo es una afiliación, no tanto una fotografía. Y sí, en efecto, es un sindicato independiente. En México tenemos algo que llamamos sindicatos charros, que los sindicatos charros son sindicatos que apoyan a la empresa y únicamente benefician a la empresa. Entonces, nuestro proyecto es instalar un sindicato independiente que realmente defienda los derechos de los trabajadores, que apoye al trabajador, que no únicamente quiera apoyar a la empresa y quitarle dinero al trabajador. Entonces, nuestro proyecto es un sindicato independiente y lo que estamos haciendo es afiliar. Nosotros iniciamos las afiliaciones con el proyecto, ¿no? A esta estructura, lo primero como la prueba de fuego, ¿no? Para saber si podían formar parte de nuestra estructura fue eso, llegar, presentarnos, decirles cuál era nuestro proyecto, antes que eso preguntarles, ¿no? Cómo eran sus condiciones, que nosotros ya las conocíamos. Porque ya teníamos como bien detectado qué eran las deficiencias del blanco, ¿no? Pero posterior a eso de escucharlos, pues hacerles saber cómo era injusto, cómo ellos tenían oportunidades a mejores derechos y a través de qué, pues de nosotros como sindicato independiente. Entonces se les pidió una afiliación y esa es la primer prueba, ¿no? El hecho de saber si quieren formar parte de. Y en el momento en el que dicen, sí, te firmo la afiliación, ok, ya pasan la primera. Y la segunda es, bueno, ¿qué te parece si ahora que ya formas parte y quieres formar parte de este sindicato independiente, necesitamos de tu ayuda para llegar a más contactos? Porque si bien nosotros tenemos una red de contactos necesitamos más, no los conocemos a todos. Tú nos puedes ayudar a conseguir más contactos, más trabajadores que están alrededor de ti. Y siempre aclaramos esto, ¿no? Que ellos son la fuerza, porque ellos son quienes están dentro de la empresa. Nosotros estamos organizando desde afuera, ¿no? Y quienes nos van a dar como el éxito rotundo y como la convocatoria, la convocación, ¿no? El obtener más personas, pues es a través de ellos mismos. Entonces, esa es la segunda prueba, ¿no? Que ellos mismos nos empiecen a atraer más trabajadores. Por eso queremos esa cifra, ¿no? De 1 por línea y en las líneas más grandes 2, para que nos empiecen a atraer más afiliaciones. Y el tercero ya es, vaya, son 1, afiliarlos, 2, pedirles contactos, o sea, más trabajadores, y el tercera prueba ya como para saber que son parte de esta estructura, fue que nos ayuden a afiliar. Cuando ya pasaron las primeras 2, llegamos y les proponemos, mira, ¿qué te parece si te dejo 5 hojas de afiliación y tú me ayudas con tus compañeros de confianza, los más cercanos, y empiecen a afiliar ellos? Y ya cuando llegan a ese tercer nivel es donde nos damos cuenta que realmente sí forman parte de la estructura. Y ya posterior a eso, pues empezamos a hacer cadenas, ¿no? Con los que ellos afiliaron, irlos a buscar también, invitarlos a afiliar y así. Pero esos son como los 3 pasos para saber, pues, que pueden ser estructura o como nosotros tenemos aquí delegados especiales.
And on the question for me, and it's beautiful, but the question for me still is, are you trying to test, like, how do you choose that one person? Tell us where you're having the conversations, because everyone doesn't know. I read your proposal. Tell us where you're having the conversations. And how are you giving them the assignment to then try to understand, are they a leader in their production line or not? That's the missing step for me, because you could be reaching an activist, right? That one person, you could get one contact, may not be able to move anybody on their production line.
Nos ha pasado.
Talk us through that a little bit.
No, nosotros visitamos en sus casas, porque a diferencia de lo que he escuchado, este es mi segundo capacitación con ustedes. Y a diferencia de lo que he escuchado, tienden a organizar como afuera de la empresa o en paradas de camiones. Nosotros no podemos hacer eso, porque las empresas aquí en México toman muchas represalias. Si ven a los trabajadores que están hablando con alguien, digo, nos tienen detectados, ¿no? Que están hablando con alguien que nos ven, los corren o los suspenden. Actualmente tenemos a muchos trabajadores en convenio. Convenio quiere decir que los mandan a casa pagándoles el 50% de su sueldo, y eso es algo de lo que están haciendo como para permitir que entre un sindicato charro en lugar de uno independiente. Entonces, lo que nosotros hacemos es detectar un trabajador y a través de ese trabajador, oye, pásame direcciones, pásame números de teléfono de más trabajadores y visitamos en sus casas, que le llamamos hacer campo, en trabajo de campo, ¿no? Y vamos a sus casas. ¿Para qué? Para proteger la identidad del trabajador, para protegerlos de cualquier represalia de la empresa y sobre todo para que el trabajador se sienta en un ambiente seguro, que no se sienta amenazado, que no se sienta observado. Ya en lo que es su casa, pues ya es algo donde está más tranquilo, que sabe que pues no hay nadie de la empresa alrededor. Y confían en nosotros y se sienten tranquilos. También hacemos reuniones cuando tenemos como detectado un líder. ¿Cómo lo detectamos? Como les digo, a través de estas 3 pruebas, donde vemos que nos está apoyando, que nos está ayudando, que no nos sabotea, ¿no? De alguna manera. Cuando detectamos un líder, le pedimos, oye, ¿cómo ves si puedes prestarnos tu casa para hacer una reunión con más trabajadores? que tú invites que sean cercanos a ti o que nosotros tengamos detectados como confiables, y se acepta, en esas casas hacemos reuniones y ya para posteriores reuniones los mismos trabajadores que asistieron a esa reunión traen a más trabajadores. Entonces, esa es la manera en la que nosotros organizamos. Nosotros no podemos organizar fuera de la empresa o en una parada de autobuses o no sé, algo cercano, no podemos. Entonces nosotros tenemos que dirigirnos hacia sus
Perfect.
casas. Ujú.
Perfect. That was the clarifying step I wanted you to explain to people before we ask you, and I'm not sure who it's going to be, but before we ask one of you to be the organizer and one of you to be, a worker in the campaign, as true to the campaign as it can be. The distinction is you are getting at leadership identification because you're asking them to bring other workers. So once you get there, if there's no other workers, it means you probably have a supporter, but not a leader, right, at the house. And then judging on how many workers they've brought to the house that you're going to go to, you're making an assessment. Oh, this worker brought 3, this worker brought 10, right? So that was the beautiful clarification of how this is actually doing leader identification. And then you're growing the base by asking the participants in the meeting, some of whom may be activists, some of whom may be leaders, to replicate, are you willing to do a house meeting? And then you're assessing their leadership, their natural organic leadership capacity based on how many are at the next house that you go to. So that was beautifully stated, Annabelle, totally terrific. And
Exacto.
I definitely have spent most of my life doing house visits, if it's a new organizing campaign, right? What we call house calls. In the United States, in the environments I work in, workers are too terrified to talk in the workplace. So they do not want to be identified by the employer as talking to anybody. And so we are very comfortable doing a lot of house visits and house meetings, just like you. So that was a very helpful clarification about where the leadership identification is built into your method. And it sounds great. And the size of the unit sounds, it's doable, right? You're at 15 already. You need 15 more. And in this structure test, you're really looking for specific people who are in the lines that you're missing. So you've got the charting happening as well, which is fantastic, right? You know already where you have coverage and where you don't have coverage. Fantastic. So
Sí,
are
de hecho
you...
tenemos un mapa de lo que es la empresa por dentro, que logramos a través de entrevistas con los trabajadores. Tal cual fue de llevar un cuaderno y una pluma y a ver, explícame, entras y a tu mano derecha, ¿qué hay? No, pues oficinas, y a tu mano izquierda baños, ¿dónde está esta línea? ¿Dónde está? Ya que tuvimos el mapa de cómo era la empresa por dentro, ok, en esta línea, ¿cuántos trabajadores hay? ¿Qué hacen? ¿Cómo empiezan? Entonces, a través de ese mapeo que realizamos en entrevistas fue como pudimos obtener, pues, estos números, ¿no?
Fantastic. It's exactly the way to do the work. When no one's going to hand you a list, we build our list one conversation at a time, and we do it by charting, right? Line by line, who sits by who knows who. Perfectly done. So who is going to play the organizer and who is going to play the recruitee? And are you ready to go in your conversation?
Yo voy a ser el organizador y Palomino va a ser el trabajador. Solo denme un minuto.
Yep.
Listo. Palomino, ¿estás listo?
Sí, estamos listos.
And Juan Carlos is going to be the worker.
Sí, Juan Carlos.
Palomino.
Perfecto, Juan
Perdón.
Carlos. Ok, hola.
Sí, trabajador.
Okay.
Hola, buenas tardes, Juan Carlos, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, bien.
Mi nombre es Anabel Fernández y pues formo parte del Comité Fronterizo de Obreros. En Comité Fronterizo de Obreros somos una organización que defendemos derechos de trabajadores de maquiladoras como tú y estamos muy interesados en saber pues cómo son sus condiciones de trabajo, cómo los trata su empresa. Platícame, Juan Carlos, ¿cómo te va a ti en tu maquiladora?
Bueno, ahí más o menos bien, ¿no? En realidad, que quisiera uno, ¿no? Desgraciadamente, ¿no? En la empresa donde trabajamos hay mucha presión. Los jefes están al lado de uno, atrás viendo qué hacemos, qué no hacemos, presionándonos para que cada vez la producción se siga, elevando. Cada vez quieren más. Y nuestra situación económica es la misma y hay veces empeora, ya que ves que alrededor de nosotros, la economía está deteriorándonos. Bueno, nos presionan más para más producción con el mismo salario. Entonces, esas son cosas que, pues sí, nos preocupa un poco, pero además de eso, pues uno no puede hacer nada. Los jefes, pues siempre tratan de intimidar a uno, aunque uno se oponga a las acciones que ellos, quieran hacer en contra de uno, pues no, uno no puede, ¿no? Ellos son los jefes.
Qué difícil, Juan Carlos. Me imagino que debes de terminar muy cansado a lo largo del día si todo el tiempo te están presionando para trabajar de más. Y aparte que el cansancio físico, la frustración, ¿no? Porque no recibes un buen sueldo. Eh, Debe ser una situación muy difícil. Ahora, eh, pues la presión de tus jefes, platícame, ¿cómo son ellos? ¿Qué les dicen?
No, pues ellos siempre están sobre la producción. A ellos no les interesa si tienes alguna molestia, si estás enfermo, si padeces de algo. A ellos no, ellos simplemente quieren números en la producción, pero además calidad, ¿no? Y cuando se hace más producción, la calidad va quedando de lado y desgraciadamente cuando hay problemas de calidad, ahí vienen los castigos para los trabajadores cuando ellos mismos lo provocan, ¿no? Hay compañeros a los que los han suspendido 2, 3 días porque no han hecho el trabajo bien, cuando la razón es por la misma presión que hay, ¿no? Entonces todas esas son cosas que, pues en lugar de levantarlo el ánimo, cada vez nos pone más estrés, ¿no? Porque más producción, eh, poniendo en riesgo la calidad y luego sale mala calidad y luego nos cornan o algunos compañeros lo suspenden a los que más bien le va. Entonces son cosas que realmente pues nos ponen entre la espada y la pared.
Claro, qué difícil y qué mal por tus compañeros, ¿no? Que han sido castigados por algo que pues no es tanto responsabilidad de ellos. ¿Sabes tú que tienes otras opciones para que respeten sus derechos? Si bien ustedes tienen que sí cumplir con una producción, la empresa debe ver para que ustedes estén bien, que tengan unas buenas condiciones, que si voy a exigir calidad, también tengo que entender que hay un ritmo para llevar calidad y sobre todo que no pueden estarlos vaya castigando por algo que es ajeno a ustedes. Tú mismo me estás diciendo, ¿no? Me presionan el llevar un ritmo rápido, no me permite sacar una buena calidad. Entonces la empresa no tendría por qué castigarlos por esto. Entonces, ¿sabes tú que tienen opciones para que esto cambie?
Bueno, en realidad no las conozco, se escuchan rumores, ¿no? Pero pues no, en realidad la empresa ni el sindicato nos va a instruir o nos va a enseñar qué es a qué tenemos derecho,
Cuentan,
¿no? Ellos simplemente la producción y nada más.
cuentan con un sindicato, Juan Carlos.
Sí, sí, actualmente en la empresa donde trabajamos se llama CTM, el
¿Conoces a
sindicato.
tus delegados sindicales?
Andan unos que otros por ahí, supuestamente que son los delegados, pero bueno, ellos no resuelven nada. Ellos simplemente, si el patrón dice está suspendido, pues está suspendido. O sea, ellos no ven por uno como trabajador.
¿Alguna vez se han acercado a ti a preguntarte si necesitas algo, si te pueden ayudar de alguna manera o has tenido algún problema y te han resuelto algo tus delegados?
Personalmente no, yo no he tenido experiencia en eso.
¿Conoces a tu secretario general del sindicato?
No. No, se escucha rumorar nada más que es tal persona, pero nada más. En realidad no lo conocemos.
Juan Carlos, una pregunta más. sabes que para elegir un sindicato se tiene que hacer de manera democrática a través de una votación, un sondeo en el que pregunten si ustedes están de acuerdo con el sindicato o quieren otro. ¿En algún momento participaste en esa votación o alguien te preguntó si querías el sindicato que tienes?
Bueno, hace más o menos más de un mes, creo que los dos, hubo una votación que se decía que era de ratificación, algo así. En verdad, pues no vi muy interesante, simplemente se iba a votar, incluso, pues algunos compañeros votaban sin identificación, pero además, no vimos si había alguna autoridad o alguien que representara. A mí se me hace que era la misma empresa. Entonces, en realidad no sé si sea representativo eso.
Qué desafortunado, Juan Carlos. Mira, te explico. Un sindicato se debe elegir, como te digo, de manera democrática. Todos los empleados deben votar y estar de acuerdo para saber si quieren o no un sindicato. Y en el caso de que no estén de acuerdo con el sindicato que tienen, porque tú mismo me estás diciendo, no, sé quiénes son los delegados, pero nunca han hecho nada por mí, eh, no me han ayudado, no sé quién es mi secretario general. eh, Hubo algo que era una ratificación, pero no supimos bien a bien. Entonces, no es una manera de elegir un sindicato. La empresa debe preguntar, debe presentarles a sus dirigentes, a sus delegados, y ellos deben de trabajar para que ustedes tengan buenos derechos y buenas condiciones. Y todo esto que pasa de que te presionan para la producción, que terminas largas jornadas laborales cansado, agotado y aparte te presionan para sacar calidad y al ritmo que llevas no se puede. Tus delegados deberían de estar viendo para que cambien esas condiciones y beneficiarte a ti y a tus compañeros. Entonces quiere decir que tu sindicato no protege tus derechos y yo quiero hacerte saber que tienes otras opciones, que si ustedes en esa ratificación hubieran estado de acuerdo, pudieron haber votado que no, si estuvieran bien informados, ¿no? Habemos hay sindicatos independientes que realmente defienden a los trabajadores, a sus derechos, y eso es de lo que vengo a hablarte hoy. Quiero invitarte a que conozcas cuáles son realmente un sindicato que te protege, realmente un sindicato que ve por ti, por tus compañeros, y eso es lo que nosotros tenemos. Nosotros somos ajenos a la empresa, no defendemos a la empresa. Entonces, vamos a ver por ti, por tus compañeros, por tus derechos laborales y queremos saber si te interesa formar parte de nosotros.
Bueno, si se trata de la democracia, por supuesto que sí, creo que tal vez sea la única forma, ¿no? Porque, pues, en la empresa estamos como los dictadores. ¿Haces bien la propuesta?
Me da gusto que te interese. Mira, esta es nuestra hoja de afiliación, solo necesito tus datos y el hecho de que tú firmes esta afiliación, pues ya te hace formar parte del cambio, de la libertad sindical, del elegir por la protección de ti, de tus derechos. Eh, Solo necesitaría que me dieras una identificación. ¿Tienes una identificación que me puedas prestar?
Sí, claro que sí. Sí.
Excelente, voy a tomar una fotografía. Quiero que sepas que esto es totalmente confidencial. Nosotros, estos documentos no llegan a la empresa de ninguna manera y no te perjudican para nada. Entonces, solo me firmas esta hoja, por favor, que es tu afiliación. Aquí viene todos tus datos, los de tu empresa y solo es tu firma lo que necesito.
Sí, es completamente seguro, ¿verdad?
Totalmente, nada te va a afectar, tío. Esto es confidencial y solo es para uso de nosotros.
Ok, sí, porque tengo muchos problemas al interior de la empresa, ya ves que nos presionan bastante. Entonces, pues sí, por supuesto me preocupa eso, pero pues qué
¿Cómo
bueno, ¿no?
te te digo, nuestro interés es proteger tus derechos y no darte más problemas y nosotros nos encargamos de que no te afecte de ninguna manera. Aparte, la Ley Federal del Trabajo protege tus derechos de tener un sindicato que tú elijas de manera libre. Entonces, despreocúpate, nosotros vamos a cuidar esos detalles.
Muy bien, gracias, sí.
Pues felicidades, Juan Carlos. Nos da un gusto que hayas decidido por cambiar tus derechos, por formar parte de estos sindicatos democráticos independientes. Y ahora que ya eres parte de nosotros, nos gustaría nosotros extender este número. Necesitamos muchos más contactos, necesitamos más trabajadores que se unan a nosotros, porque si bien la empresa puede afectar a un trabajador, no puede afectar a 30, 40, 50, ¿no? Entonces, nosotros necesitamos llegar a más de tus compañeros. ¿Crees que podrías pasarnos los números de teléfono o direcciones de algunos de tus compañeros?
Sí, creo que sí, nada más déjame ver, voy a platicar con ellos para ver si hay la posibilidad. Yo considero que sí, al igual que yo hay muchos compañeros inconformes y tal vez le interese la propuesta.
Y siempre y cuando que sean compañeros de tu confianza, que tú sepas que pues no se van a molestar o que no te van a perjudicar de alguna manera. Y también quiero que sepas que cuando tú nos hagas dar sus direcciones, sus teléfonos, nosotros no vamos a decir que fuiste tú si así lo quieres. Si tú quieres que protejamos que tú nos diste esas direcciones, esos teléfonos, ellos no lo van a saber.
Ok, gracias.
¿Te parece si te visito en 2 días para ver si ya me tienes esos trabajadores?
Sí me parece, pero si fuera unos poquitos días más para que a mí me des la oportunidad de platicar con ellos.
Claro, tú dime cuándo quieres recibir nuestra visita.
¿Te parece el fin de semana?
Perfecto, el sábado, ¿te parece bien?
¿Está bien? Sí, sí, yo te espero.
Excelente, Juan Carlos. Sí, bienvenido. Bienvenido al cambio,
Gracias.
bienvenido a la democracia. Has tomado una excelente decisión y nos vemos el sábado.
Muy bien, gracias.
Excelente. Todo bueno. Muy, muy, muy bien. Perfecto. Really good. That was very, very, very excellent walking through of the 6 steps. And just for starters, you hit all of the 6 steps. And that is something that, as we heard in the last role play, we have a better chance of hitting all the 6 steps when we actually practice having these conversations over and over again. Yeah, great work. You can see all the love in there. So let me start quickly by asking Annabelle, is there anything that you would do differently in the conversation than you did there?
Posiblemente Juan Carlos está hablando de su experiencia, él es de Ciudad de Acuña. Juan Carlos está hablando de su experiencia en Ciudad de Acuña. Yo, mi experiencia en Piedras Negras es muy distinta. Entonces, posiblemente empaparme un poco más de cuál es su situación, ¿no? Como les digo, estudiamos nosotros el blanco, ¿no? Para saber todo. Entonces, la situación de Palomino es muy distinto a lo que yo trabajo diariamente. Entonces, creo que sí nos faltó como un poco más de preparación en ese aspecto. Prácticamente estaba llegando con un trabajador que no conocía sus condiciones ni su situación.
Uh-huh. Okay. Excellent. And Juan Carlos, what, if anything, could Annabelle have done differently from your viewpoint that would have made you either understand or feel better? Any feedback that you have for her besides well done, obviously, since you signed the affiliation, but viewpoints from you for Annabelle about things that she could have done differently?
No, creo que bien, de acuerdo a nuestra experiencia que tenemos, en realidad cada persona es diferente, ¿no? Y cada conversación muchas veces, buscamos la forma de cómo llegarle, ¿no? Hay compañeros muy difíciles y hay compañeros a los que fácilmente se le puede transmitir el mensaje. Pero eso va a depender, no de uno, sino de la persona con la que uno esté.
Okay, good. I thought there were a lot of things that were really great, Annabelle, about how you led the conversation, starting with actually working through the progression of the 6 steps. Absolutely great. Confident, friendly, clear. But I'm going to make a couple of quick observations on things that I think could be a little bit improved on. Again, in a more perfect world, right? That's why we're here to do it. I want to start with exactly what you said, your own reflection on your own work. I actually thought there were I wrote down 2 different times when you could have dug more into his issues, which is the same as you saying, like, learning actually more about him. I did think that spending more time understanding, we never really we heard stress, production line, sick people. Like, you could have gone back and said, give me an example of how many people are sick at a time and what the direct impact is. You know, like, you could have dug in a little bit more to some of the things that he said specifically to, like, agitate, right, a little bit more. So I thought there were 2 places in the conversation, like when he said, quality production, like, that's a big term. Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? Walk me through what that looks like. And then how do the employers take that out on you, right? And then, so I think what you identified already is actually one of the most important things. And then I don't know, I don't think it's a translation thing at all. I think the one other piece, because I was sort of listening in both those languages, but I think the one thing that I would say is a little bit similar to the first one. Both of these are like super confidential. So they're less challenging structure tests. And again, that's real in phase 1, right? At Einstein Hospital, the example I walked you all through, we did not start by saying, are you ready to march on your boss and sign a petition? We started by asking, are you ready to sign a union card, right? Which is private. So that is step 1 before we go to a public structure test. But the one other piece of feedback I have is that you several times talked about the we-us balance. I thought could be a little bit better. Like, you use language about protecting him. You actually said the words, we'll take care of all this, we'll protect you. And I think that's the chance where you can better say, actually, the reason why it's going to be important for you to bring coworkers to your house is because no one can protect you except when all of you unite together, or when each of us unite, right? If you're a worker in a different facility, when each of us in each of our production lines get a majority of our coworkers doing this together, that's how and you sort of got there at the end when you said the 50, they can't get 50 of us. But I thought before you got to making your good point in the end about the 50 workers, it's hard for them to do the 50 workers. You could cut out the language about protecting you. Like, you were literally saying, we will, don't worry, we will protect you. And that's the kind of semantics language in the 6 step that I think we just, every time we do it, we get better. We just want to try and eliminate that part of it. And then in that part of the conversation where you were saying it's confidential, it was the second chance where he said, well, yeah, when you asked him to sign the card, second time that Juan Carlos said, there's a lot of problems here. And you went right past the chance to say, tell me more about the problems. And that's when you went into the thing about, well, we can protect you. So I know we were like in a role play going fast, obviously. So there was a couple chances where I wrote down right there, we could ask him more about what are those problems, right? So you identified that. And I want to celebrate you for like your own reflection in the work plan itself. And I think, and then at the end, you did a great job of like making a specific plan to follow up with him, right? I'll see you Saturday. Saturday works. That's great. I'll see you at the house. How many people do you think you can get? The one thing I might have done differently is, again, is if you could, like, ask him for the names, because you want to help him think when you're in the discussion with him. The way we saw in the first role play, when she actually made her coworker think about the names. If we help people think by saying the names of the workers that they're going to reach out to, it actually is a way to get them to make their own work plan. So that's my last piece of feedback. But I thought it was totally fantastic. I'm looking forward to having another big victory in an independent union in Mexico to get rid of those Charo unions, get them right out of there, and bring in better unions. Anyone else? So we have Arturo here in Bahia. Anyone want to give any feedback on what they saw in the workshop, things that you might do differently from the rest of the team? Any questions from the team? Good.
Gracias, Jane. Sí, pues creo que más bien manejaron mucho el contexto en el que nos encontramos en México. Como bien lo dijiste en un inicio, en México estamos transitando a la democracia y libertad sindical. Durante mucho tiempo estuvo un sindicato por parte del gobierno del Estado, y a partir de 2019 es que ha cambiado esta idea de tener sindicatos por parte del Estado y que existan sindicatos libres y democráticos. Es por eso que nuestro compañero Juan Carlos se refería mucho al sindicato, ¿no? Que ya sea que los presionara, ya sea el patrón o el dueño de la empresa o el sindicato, ¿no? Y que es una realidad en México, que son dos autoridades en el mismo lugar que pueden presionar a las y los trabajadores. Quizás por ahí tal vez Anabel hubiera podido aunar un poco más sobre ese tipo de sindicatos que no les ayudan en nada. Lo hizo, pero quizás pudo haber tal vez ayudado esa parte también. Muchas gracias, Jane.
Super. Thank you very much. That was really fantastic. I want to quickly bring up our team from CUPE, who is not going to be able to run their wrap, which we sort of thought, actually. But I want them to come up and explain their structure test. So everyone, big love to the team from Comité. Totally fantastic. Really good work in a really different climate. And Liz, so great job. Look at all the love you're getting. Comité. Annabelle and Juan Carlos, everybody, totally good job. I think, gracias, ciao, ciao. Okay, so here we have Carissa, we have Nick. We did not ask you to run the wrap because we're really not going to have you run the wrap. But what we do want to do is have you tell us quickly from Canada, from CUPE, your union, where you are, what the issue is and what the structure test that you sent in was to us, Liz.
Hey, good morning from Vancouver. We're on the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people out here. I'm with my colleagues, Carissa and Nick, and we are staff members at CUPE, at the Canadian Union of Public Employees. Our structure test is multi-layered, and it matches a few of the things that we've heard today. But what I'm really excited to share about you is that our structure test is about a union organizing drive. So from the ground up, a group that we would consider municipal workers who are working in an environment that was recently privatized. And they've seen some pretty dramatic shifts as a result of the privatization by an international company. So the structure test was twofold. The first part of it was getting workers to sign a union card and join the union. Where we live in Canada, you fold into an existing local. So they would be joining a group of about 4,000 city workers with a lot of solidarity that have quite a lot of member engagement going on and some other aspects that they could jump onto. But before they get there, we would like to, and we will be running this structure test with them around organizing the 4 different units that exist within the worksite. So we're organizing an aquarium here in Vancouver, And the workers break down into animal care workers, operations staff, sales and marketing, and food services. So by getting 3 of those 4 groups signed in and certified to join a union, we would then do a visual structure test, and we would release a photo banner that I think we're all familiar with at this point in the course to the employers. And this would be pictures of the workers in front of either their favorite exhibit at the aquarium or with their favorite animal at the aquarium. And we would deliver that to the managers during their weekly meeting with the international owners of the organization. So a little storm the meeting element to present that banner and just show that solidarity. A big part of that will be to draw out the 4th group of workers who are very precarious. A lot of young workers, they're in the food service sector, and so it's been very hard to chart them. And so by showing that we have that super majority of people inside the facility, we want them to know that it's both safe and important for them to join in, because everybody at this facility deserve the rights and benefits of a union.
So I want to say a couple of things about your structure test. And part of why I wanted you even to come up and say it. It is well thought out. The part of you that starts by thinking about asking workers to get comfortable taking their photo by choosing their favorite animal, I thought was super smart. And the progression and the thinking of like, start with the workers where you believe you can actually have success and use that to scaffold into the more precarious workers over a series of mini structure tests is actually really good. So we were struggling to figure out, could we fit Vancouver in? We didn't fit Vancouver in that well, but we did bring you up here because I want people to hear the sort of cleverness, right? This is asking a worker in an aquarium that's been privatized to actually feel more comfortable doing a picture with their favorite animal. What else did you say in here? Their favorite animal or their favorite part of the exhibit. And then moving into, once you show success there, you're going to show success. Then you're going to move on to the next group of workers, and you've scaffolded it in a way that frankly makes a lot of sense. So in the proposal, which people won't see, there's an inside committee of workers, and the plan is, with a very well-written RAP that you have, is to actually start doing training with the member committee inside to practice the RAP in the ways that we've just seen people actually practicing, because they've actually got to go do the work inside the facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, do you have any questions for me? Because I thought you put together a very excellent proposal for the structure test, and it looks really good. And we're looking forward to a unionized aquarium, and we're looking forward to a unionized 330 worker facility on the Mexican border. And we're looking forward to extraordinary bus service in Oakland sometime soon. But any questions that you have for us or for me?
I do have one question. Is it okay, Chris and Nick, if I go first? I think what I've seen a lot of people struggle with, and I struggle with myself as an organizer, is timing. And so when you hit the agitation element, we know that we want to spend time and give space to the worker to speak there. And then we also know that they're trying to catch the next bus, or they're coming to or from their shift. And I was wondering if you have any suggestions for making sure there's enough space, but also getting through all 6 steps.
Yeah. I think the more we practice them, for one thing, the faster we get at them. So pace of how you move through them comes with practice. That's one. 2, almost taking a page from what we just heard from Comité, and this is much less usual in Canada, but actually, if you've got a really short space of time, I would be asking them, can we make a plan tomorrow to meet at the cafe, the restaurant, the something that's right across from the workplace? You have a less fearful environment, though no fear. And the precarious workers that you have to get to have more fear, right? So, but if I'm going to have an impossible conversation, I'm going to open with the purpose of the conversation. I'm going to ask them what are the 3 things that they would change if they could change them. And if I've only got 4 minutes, I'm going to try, my objective is to actually get them to agree to a phone call, a meeting before or after the work shift next time they do it. So I can at least get to the space where I've got 15 minutes. Can you and I make a plan to meet and talk 3 days from now after shift change so that they're ready for that and you actually get them to commit to it? It's less common in Canada to do house calls, but I would frankly, I believe in them in a big way, that they're not just good for workers. In Mexico, they're good for any sort of serious conversation. So one, if you have a very short space of time, bridge it to make it a longer space of time. That's my main recommendation, besides practicing.
Thank you.
That's it. And make it as easy as possible. Can you agree to meet me for 15 extra minutes or show up 15 minutes early to your next shift change, right? Because they might have a childcare issue on either side of that. You don't know where it is. And if that's not good, then it's like, can I actually meet you? The house thing is very intense in Canada. So it's like, can you tell me a cafe near your house where I can meet you this weekend? Something like that. So you're getting them not at the house. Canada, a lot of issues about privacy, but can you agree to get them somewhere really close to their house to make it super easy for them for a bit of a longer conversation? All right. Yeah. Okay. Go Vancouver. Good job. It's a really good structure test. It's a really good, well thought out wrap. Go forth with gusto. I want to bring Ethan on stage. Thanks to Nick. Thanks to Carissa. Thanks to Liz. Thanks to everybody. Ethan, come on up here and goodbye to Vancouver and Mexico, Piedras Negras and Oakland. All right. There you are. Do you need a slide or you're just going to go right into it?
Yeah, I think we're just going to go right into it. And what we'll do is we have some good information on slides that we're going to run in a loop after we conclude, but we're just going to get ourselves out of here as close to on time as possible. I'm going to turn on the chat for just a moment for a last little round of appreciation for all of our folks who have been up here today. Can be scary. It's a lot of work, and it's really great to have these different really excellent structure tests, just to see folks where they are at in their processes, right? So it's fantastic to see all the love, all the thumbs up in the sidebar. I would also say we should do a little round of applause for Jane and her work as well. So if we can get a little, you can't avoid it, Jane. It's been a really, really good and interesting session today. I've been super into it. And now, because we only have 2 minutes left, and I'm going to hold you over for just a couple of minutes, but a very few minutes over time, as few as possible, we're going to dive right into our closing. The first thing that I want to say to all of you, it's the evaluation surveys. You know all about them. We're going to stop the chat in just a moment here. And Sarah, if you could get that evaluation form in there, great. They're always important. This one is more important because we are asking for your feedback about this week plus the entire course. And if you've dropped off just a little with your evaluations in recent weeks, this is the week to come back, both because it's our most important evaluation for adapting and developing our work going forward, and because it is how you will access your graduation certificates. That's right. Each of you who can attest to having taken part in 5 of our 6 weekly sessions will receive a graduation certificate from us. It will take us several weeks because we are a very small back-end team that has been working very hard for the past 2 months. But over the course of July, we will get all of them to all of you who complete that evaluation form that is in the chat right now. Together with these graduation certificates, each of you, and this is the surprise gift, each of you will receive a lovely poster designed by our artist, Emily Robinson, the person who has been preparing our weekly illustrated guides. Again, if you can stick around for a few extra minutes, you'll see that poster on loop at the end. And on this note, we're also going to start a quick round of closing appreciation, starting with Emily, whom we met on Twitter of all places, a participant who took our last session and was doing these amazing session maps. And now we have her preparing illustrated guides each week for our lessons. Sarah, maybe you could pop a few of those into the chat. We don't have them in all of our languages yet. We just weren't able to pull it off on time, but it's a huge priority for us to get them into all of our languages. and to more broadly integrate Emily's amazing work into our training going forward. Emily, you're the best. On continuing onward on the appreciations, I want to be quick and not too repetitive, but we do need to give a final round of applause for our trainers. And, you know, we've got Jane here with us, but also Jolene Levid, Lilia Rodriguez, Everlyn Akech, Preeti Siva Kumar, John Hegarty, and Andrea Garcia. I know that some of you are here watching. You are the dream team of organizing trainers, and it is a great pleasure and privilege of my life, in any case, to have the opportunity to work with all of you. So love for our trainers, to also my main behind the scenes colleagues, and I'm thinking here about Fanny Stoltz, as well as Sarah Reeder and Clément Soudan. Many of these three you've met already in one capacity or another. All of you you work fast, you're furious about the challenges we face in the world, you're friendly, you're fun, you're decent human beings, and it counts for so much in this world and for the colleagues that we have. To everybody who submitted your final structure test and otherwise joined us on stage in the training, it's been fantastic. To our enormous community of facilitators, of group contacts, of country and language contacts, to borrow a German expression, all of the many multipliers who are out there getting the news about this program out there. The work that you're doing, this program doesn't work without all of you. It does not work without all of you. Another group that it does not work without at all is without our amazing team of interpreters and translators, so flexible, consummate in your professionalism. You make this international gathering possible. And on the topic of internationalism and of Germany, to our host, the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung, which is a fantastic political foundation that's clear-eyed about the challenges of our time, totally unafraid to take on projects like this, and give them the support they deserve. So to Fanny, but to Florian Vilda, Boris Kanzleiter, Andrea, Safrir, Emma, Wiebke, Martha, a bunch of you I don't have time to mention. It's great to have you with us. Going forward, let's start out just real quickly by sharing a few ways to stay in touch. There's our Twitter account, there's Facebook, if you use that. There's our ever-expanding Spotify list that we're super proud of and are taking suggestions on, plus a pilot episode of an occasional show called What Winning Looks Like. I see that Sarah is, sharing all this stuff in the sidebar, so please be taking down these links, opening them up. We also have there's a short movie, if you're really into the German hospital worker story, that was put together by some of the folks at Rosa Luxemburg. That's really worth your time. And on this topic of staying in touch, we have upcoming debrief sessions for our group contacts and facilitators. There are going to be 2 of them. The first one is this Saturday, and we will share the dates now in the sidebar, and we'll also contact all of you. We know how to get in touch with our group contacts and facilitators. We'll let you know about those dates and the links, but we're going to have one on Saturday and another next week to talk about what worked well, what can go better next time. We are also really, really excited to announce our next program, which is titled Power and Participation in Negotiations. It's based on some really fantastic groundbreaking work that Jane and some folks at Berkeley have been doing. It will be taking place on Saturdays in October, 3 Saturdays in October, the 1st, 15th, and 29th, at the same time as our track A session. So at the same time that you take this course right here. It's open exclusively to folks who have previously taken an O4P course. That means all of you. And that's because the shift to transparent, big, and open negotiations really relies on an organizing approach that is outlined in this course, in these core fundamentals. So it's going to be composed of plenaries, reading group sessions, and we'll have some really interesting and inspiring examples of how it can transform power relations between workers and bosses. So now Sarah should be sharing a link where you can express interest in participating, and we'll follow up soon with proper registration form and a few more details. And lastly, I'll just say that we also will have our next core fundamentals training. We don't yet have the exact dates. It will almost certainly be in March and April of 2023. So pencil that into your calendars and expect to hear from us soon with confirmation and registration details. And on the very, very last note of these 6 weeks, I will just give one last shout out, and it's to all of you. Every single one of you who's been here, who's been with us throughout these 6 weeks. This program means nothing without your presence and participation, without your beautiful diversity and your internationalism, your discipline, your desire to fight for a better world. We hope you come away from this course with tools, with skills that will help you to build and win your campaigns. We hope you come away buoyed and strengthened from having shared this space with folks from around the world who are on your side, doing everything they can to organize for power as well. Struggles are interconnected. When one of us wins, we all win. And the enormity of the challenges we face are such that we need all of us, every single one of you. So get out there, get to work, get in touch with us to let us know about your challenges, your victories, your struggles to come. And in spite of the adversity we face, to close with the words of the Bolivian indigenous leader Tupac Katari, we will return and we will be millions. On that note, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to you wherever you are in the world. I am Ethan Earle. This has been Organizing for Power's Core Fundamentals. Take care and see you next time.
Great job, Ethan. Great job. All right. Fill in the evals. Let's go. We're going to have what winning looks like coming off of all three of those campaigns, I think. Have a terrific morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Great job, Ethan Earle, who just busts his something to get the program done.
Went very fast through my closing comments, as fast as I could. So we're going to put up the closing slides, which has some interesting information for all of you, and also has some beautiful illustrations that Emily's been doing. Just for anybody who wants to stick around, I'm going to ask Sarah to throw some music on there for folks who want to boogie down for a few minutes, chat with one another, and yeah, Jane and I and all of us will see you the next time around.